Welcome to Black Men Spy, U.S.-Iran Warcast. Sorry, I'm eating a Snickers bar. Day 73. Despite what you might hear out of the White House, this war is not over. The war is still going on. There has not been an end of hostilities, nor has there been a treaty signed which ends the hostilities that we are in. Despite what Marco Rubio says, the Geneva Convention says the war still goes. We're not even a peace cast anymore. I mean, we are definitely back to being a war cast. So, I'm Malcolm Nance. I'm the host of this warcast. And as you can see, I am not in my cabin in Canada. I am back in my home in New York. This is my mother-in-law's suite because we are having a Wi-Fi problem. That's something that we learned. Since I spent a lot of time out of the United States, I don't have an IT person, and I have a pretty big place, and the repeaters are not working, and that's why we were getting really bad reception up in my writing office. Isn't that terrible? But down in the music room or the gentleman's parlor or the ensuite or the drinking lounge or the the ladies parlor. We have a ladies parlor. Um, Reception's awesome, but I'm right next to the server now, and so we have very, very fast, high-speed internet, which I need because I'm doing TV and radio interviews from here, and Wi-Fi problems are a real problem. That being said, let me introduce our co-host today. Normally, we would have Jacob Kaarsbo, Danish intelligence officer, Middle East expert extraordinaire on, but his son, his dashingly handsome son, is a Danish soccer player, professional player, and Jacob goes to all the shows. Somebody said if you had an IT guy, he'd just tell you to switch the Wi-Fi on and off again. My fans are the best. So on the other hand, we do have Wajeeh, the gay lion coming from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Haver. He is here on board to help pick up the pieces, geopolitical analyst of the Persian Gulf and the Gulf states. As a native Saudi Arabian, he will give us the skivvy. And from time to time, we'll speak Arabic at each other. That being said, we have a few traditions here. Wajeeh, what are you drinking your coffee or tea out of today?
I'm almost done with my coffee. I woke up a little early, but the silly old cup that I have, I still haven't gone shopping, honestly.
Oh, God. We've got to buff you up. Okay. Well, on my side, while we're waiting for people to come up, let's do a little administration. Well, first, on my side, I am drinking from my Kangerlussuaq coffee cup, which is a very small town in Greenland, but it's the largest runway in Greenland. And this was the object of all the trouble earlier this year when Kaarsbo is also the largest airport. And this is where the U.S. Air Force operates its 3 ski planes out of when supporting Station North. And you can see how it's pronounced, Kangerlussuaq. And when you see SSU in Greenlandic or Kalalishut, you have to make that noise like super snoop. So that base, we found out when the threat was the United States was moving airborne forces supposedly to Minneapolis. The Danish weren't buying it. They were reading my podcast, Jacob's podcast, and Orla Jolsen, the most well-known blogger and person in Greenland. And we were saying they're going to jump into your country and they're going to take Kangerlussuaq and Nuuk. You take those 2 airports, you own Greenland. So the Danish put special forces up there, and we found out a month ago that they took very seriously the threat that the United States was going to first seize Kangerlussuaq Airport. And they put Danish special forces there with live ammunition and real explosives to blow up the runway at Kangerlussuaq. That's how bad things got when Jacob, myself, were there in January. Danish forces had orders to be prepared to crater and destroy the runway and to prepare for U.S. airborne forces parachuting into Kangerlussuaq to seize it. Imagine that. And then imagine those Danish forces, if U.S. parachutists had come, imagine them having to go over to the U.S. Air Force hangars and take all the Americans as prisoners of war. Jesus, you can't get this story any crazier. And Jacob was talking about it with Dean Blundell yesterday. Dean Blundell shared a room with us, a house with us when we were in Greenland in January. So that was very interesting. So I'm drinking out of my Kangerlussuaq cup. You can see the long, if you want to go there, access way to the Russer Glacier. I like glacier travel. I'm a mountaineer, and I have traveled on glaciers before. As a black mountaineer, I definitely wear all of my crampons and my ice axes and big orange and yellow clothes because I want to be seen, right? When I fall down a crevasse. So that being said, we're nearing our 1,000. We usually do a little light banter. What's going on with you, Wajeeh, before we start the horrible, horrible news?
Man, just doctor appointments and
I know
looking
how you
at
feel.
more place that has more freedom of speech than currently I have.
Well,
The reality of the situation is very sad at the moment in the United States, to the point
trust me.
where I'm looking. I came to the United States for freedom of speech, my first right amendment. That's literally why I applied for asylum here. And now I'm finding myself in the same pickle that I came with in 2015. And now I'm like, okay, I have to start this whole process all over again. It's really a big disappointment, and it's very sad to see that. That's all I have to say.
Yep. Well, I feel sorry that you have to go through this existence and worry about your residency, worry about what you say when you say it, and to be afraid of my government, a government, a country that my family has served for now 162 nonstop years in the armed forces. And now our government is the greatest threat that we have. In fact, there was a poll yesterday that said that the United States now ranks lower than Russia on trustworthiness worldwide. We are now officially the bad guy. So that's horrible. And I agree with some of the people who are there saying they sympathize with you. I sympathize with you. Okay, one other little piece of administration before we start. You'll see that there's this little heart-shaped object down at the bottom, and there are little hearts floating from it. Well, if you hit that 10, 15, 20 times or throughout the podcast when you hear something funny or interesting, that tells the algorithm that this live broadcast is popular. It is popular. We're number 10 on world politics, which is amazing. I mean, I go and I look at some of the people who are number 11 and up, and I go, holy cow, how are we beating CNN? So, well, pretty easy now if you watch CNN, right? But we are a trusted source on Substack, even though there's some crazies out there in the top 10, right? Some real crazies out in the top 10. We are a trusted source because we are all information and intelligence professionals. And when we give our opinion, it is an evaluated opinion. It is not based on, just junk or conspiracy theory. My near 36 years of intelligence experience, and 40 actually, if you just consider my overlasting work in private security, and Jacob's 25 some odd years in Wajeeh God knows how many years that counts. I think from the time you could actually read and speak Arabic, that counts as cultural experience. So, so you're looking at a century or more of intelligence or geopolitical, uh, cultural knowledge experience. And that's why we don't bullshit you. We will tell you the unvarnished truth, no matter how you slice it. So today we're going to go a solid hour. We're already 12 minutes into it. I have a live broadcast at 10 o'clock that I'm doing with one of Elon Musk's besties, Mario Narafa, who actually, in fact, his live feeds and his podcasts have gotten so much better than they were a year or two ago. They were like really horrible conspiracy theory things, but now he brings on real scholars, and there are opposing opinions on there. But he's a lot more solid, so I trust him now. I like him, and I go on his show when he requests because, he might have some guy giving the exact opposite of what I say on the basis of, you know, gremlins or something coming in. So I try to keep it 100 with those guys. That being said, Wajeeh, you want to go on to the casualty count?
Yes, casualty count hasn't changed much.
Well,
We're
actually,
still
it
at.
has a little four in
Uh,
Lebanon, plus four in
I
Lebanon.
do have it pulled out though. Um, the Al Jazeera has not updated their death
Yeah,
count.
they're slow.
But my death count on Lebanon is 2,713. I
Mhm.
don't know if that's different than what you got. Let me check Al Jazeera.
Yeah,
2,700. Yeah,
it's just up four.
2,700 Al Jazeera. 2,700 Al Jazeera, and my count is 2,713.
Mhm. Yep, that works. Yeah, there were four people killed yesterday, one in an assassination and no, five. I didn't count him. One in an assassination and four civilians were killed in southern Lebanon.
Actually, 11 deaths were reported Friday. Two indicates
Oof.
children, and three were in the southern of Lebanon.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you have it.
Yeah.
Oh, that war is going the wrong way, guys.
Yeah.
That's really going the wrong way. We cannot have Lebanon turn into Gaza. That will be a monumental thing. And we talked about this several times about the Israeli strategy versus the US strategy. And I had mentioned maybe a couple of months ago when we were a few weeks into the war that Israel's strategy appeared to be to throw every Muslim nation it knew, other than the ones in the Abraham Accords, into civil war or chaos, and on the philosophy that, and this is a hard right wing Israeli philosophy, the philosophy that if they're fighting each other, they won't be fighting us.
And here's where that's fucked up
Yeah.
because the more we create power vacuums in the region,
The
which is
worst
what
it gets.
Israel is doing, the worse it gets in terms of terrorism. The more we create terrorists out there.
Yep.
So it's as simple as, oh shit, this guy is literally funding terrorist organizations. He supported Hamas. He created Hamas, Netanyahu, and he worked with the Qataris to personally help them transfer bags of money from Israeli officials from Qatar all the way to Hamas. So even the funding that Hamas has been taken for the last years was supported by the Israeli government. Like the level of hypocrisy the Israeli government is willing to go through just to achieve their plans. Let's remember that
Look,
Netanyahu was almost losing his government if he didn't cooperate with the far right.
I knew that things were going completely off the rails way back when they assassinated Yasser Arafat. And rather than do like Itzhak Rabin, right? Or not Itzhak Rabin, um, ah, it'll come to me, not Rabin, but rather than negotiate with the moderate terrorists that you have, right? Going out and wiping that one guy who gave up terrorism, who brought the Palestinians back to the center. Um, Somebody says they didn't assassinate Arafat. Did you mean Rabin? No, Yasser Arafat was assassinated in the end. The French did very sophisticated uh, DNA and poison testing and found that he was poisoned. And that is, in the intelligence world, that is a very solid belief, as opposed to being shot with a bullet. He had it appeared that he had a heart attack. He didn't. The French took the body, they checked it out, and they were like, yeah, there's a very sophisticated poison in there. So, but the problem that I'm trying to get across here uh, is that if you kill the moderates, you only leave the extremists. You
Exactly.
only leave the extremists. And they actually killed Arafat, weakened the Palestinian Authority, tried to put an Israeli-backed uh, policeman in charge in Gaza, and then the Palestinians voted for a terrorist group.
Yep.
I mean, a real terrorist group, not even some half-ass PFLP, weak-ass socialist. No, Hamas
And
is a real regional terrorist group, right? It's yikes. And PIJ, right? Palestinian Islamic Jihad. So you're right. When you get rid of the moderates, you better start thinking about what's coming next. You're going to get the next ISIS, the next Al Qaeda. No, ISIS was way worse than Al Qaeda. Al Qaeda was bad.
the Al Qaeda's most extremists people ended up leaving Al Qaeda and joining ISIS.
That's right. And you know what? ISIS's philosophy. I wrote 3 books on this. I wrote the terrorist. Well, no, I wrote the book on the ideology of Al Qaeda, which was called An End to Al Qaeda, and then I wrote a book on Iraq and the start of ISIS, right? The terrorists of Iraq. And I was there when Al Qaeda in Iraq went to the name Islamic State of Iraq as a branding change, but it was a branding change where all the crazy extremists jumped over to that group, and then they went back to AQI. But the philosophy of you're not murderous enough, right, started permeating.
Ahmed al-Shar'i, the current president of
Current president of
Egypt,
Syria.
was an ISIS member, and before that, he was Al Qaeda member that joined ISIS.
Yeah,
And yeah,
yeah,
to
but
just give you an example.
he likes the money. He likes the suits, though. He likes.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, he is no longer JTJ. JTJ was our intelligence catchphrase for people who joined the jihad. All right. He LTJ. He left the jihad. And that's a death sentence pretty much for anybody else. Okay, let's get moving on. Let's take a look at oil. Wajeeh, do you want to do oil? I have it here if you can't.
Sure. If you want to pull it up, that's awesome.
Okay, let's see here.
It's easier on my hand.
Okay, well, yeah, it's easier on your side. Oh, go ahead. Let's see your screen.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Well, can we predict where it's gone? Which direction do you think oil went in the last 24 hours?
It stays about the same, a little higher, 50 cents higher, I believe.
Well, that's West Texas Intermediary is 61 cents higher. Brent North Sea crude jumped $1.23 in the last 24 hours. It's now at 101.29. West Texas Intermediate's at $95.42, right? And you'll see Murban crude's at 98. Skip Murban. That is not the spot price. Okay? But Brent North Sea
Price is closer to 150 still.
150 still. Real oil in barrels waiting to be loaded costs a lot more. It's got almost a 30% high premium. Okay, that being said, let's go to significant activities. And before we start that, for those of you who would like to ask questions, there is a chat opened up on Substack. You go on Substack, and if you go under the chats, you'll see that I have a chat in there called U.S.-Iran War. day 73, which is what today is, the 73rd day of active combat, or since active combat began on this war. So, fascinating to see, but the most significant activity that we
If you're
have. Yes, sir.
if you're asking about how to get to the chat, it is this bottom button right there where the
Yeah, the
messages
little
are.
speaker section. There you go.
And then you're gonna find Malcolm Nance, Special Intelligence, and you're gonna click on Malcolm Nance. And at the bottom, you'll see Malcolm Nance saying US Iran War, day 73. You're going to click on reply and you're finding everyone's questions on there. You should be able to do that on an Apple or on a Android.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, get that in there because I'm watching that chat and I'm also watching the chat that we have on here. You know, did you have a chance to close out of live? Not to get a chance. Oh, yesterday, by the way, we didn't post yesterday's live. There's a glitch in the system at Substack. I noticed several creators are pressing the post immediately button and it's not posting immediately button. So that's a flaw. We also have got a big flaw at Substack of uploading automatically to YouTube. I am not the only one having that problem. I've Denver Riggleman mentioned it to me yesterday. I actually have to go into our live, download it to another computer, go to YouTube Studio, and upload it separately. So Substack has a thing open, so we're trying to see that. So anyway, go to that chat, post your questions there. Significant activity. Significant activity is there is still no peace treaty, no peace talks, and the United States 14-point proposal looks almost identical to the 14-point proposal they put in on day one. We talked a little bit about that yesterday, but we have a couple of more points, some finery of that from yesterday. But first, let's go to the most significant military activity. There was no combat actions yesterday. Yes, the Iranians took an oil tanker, but that was theirs. Yes, the United States struck three tankers, including using machine guns on one from an airplane and a bomb on another one, and disabled those tankers. Those tankers were empty and going back to Iran to fill up. Apparently, Donald Trump has it into his head that the oil fields of Iran are going to explode and will never be able to be used because of this phrase they use in oil fields called shut in, right? That these oil fields will have this backfill of gas or something and that they'll stop operating. He's got a kindergartner's version of this, right? Um, and he's this kindergarten version of this is like a child's thought of closing a bedroom door and believing all the monsters are trapped inside with you. So, I mean, but that's Trump. He is a moron. I mean, this is one of the least intelligent people that you will ever see. And he really, really believes in some of the stuff that's out there. But in military activity, the Iranians yesterday, in a, how can I put it, a wave of defiance, came out to the Strait of Hormuz with not one, not two, not three, not 13, not 15, not 50, but 100 high speed boats were seen on satellite in squadrons in a mass movement out of Iranian ports into the Strait of Hormuz to demonstrate they could do it. Now, this is just 48 hours after we were in open naval combat with them, right? And we may have sank one or two boats, or we may have sank, I don't know, some fishing boats that were anchored outside there. I don't know. But the Iranians are making it crude what we have already known from the beginning. They are making it known what we've been saying since day one. Their power was never that ancient ass Navy. Their lead ship in their Navy actually sank in port while they were building it. It flipped over and they refloated it and had to clean it all out. And that we did them a favor by sinking that ship, right? And then we sank the one that was coming back from the exercise in India, sitting there all alone doing nothing. So,
Our soldiers. What about the soldiers that have been deployed for more than 300 days in the USS Bush?
yeah, well, there's the Abraham Lincoln. You mean the Ford is going back to the United States? But you know what that does? That makes people have fires in the laundry room, right? When you are out too far, Iranians are never too far out. They can take a day's leave and be home for dinner that night and go back to work the next day, no matter where in Iran they live, right? So the Iranians aren't being tired of this war and they're not stretching their forces thin, right? So that being said, Iran brought out I should do it like Austin Powers, 100 fast inshore attack craft just to show us they can do it. And if they were to actually swarm U.S. warships with 100 attack craft, plus drones, plus cruise missiles, plus ballistic missiles, some of that's going to get through. Don't forget, we've been saying since the beginning of the war, their initial count was 33,000 inshore attack craft, fast, high-speed boats. I have fought these high-speed boats. My cruiser in the desert, 1988, and Operation Praying Mantis. We call this bowling for bog hammers because the boats were called bog hammers. These Swedish high-speed boats, and we would chase them, but they can hit 50 knots, 50 miles per hour. Most we could do is 30, 35 tops. Right? I mean, when your ship's shaking and you're screaming at Scotty to give you all the speed that you can get, shit's falling off of the walls. That's the fastest our warships can go. Even the most modern ones, that's it. 35 tops, flat glass ocean, maybe 37. Those boats can hit 50 plus. Laugh, pulling circles around you, flying around you. So that was the most significant activity that we had militarily yesterday. The United States, on the other hand, Central Command, and I saw this from Sal Marcagliano, the oil tanker expert, former captain. Central Command put out photographs of the Rafael Peralta. That was the ship I mislabeled as the Perez yesterday. The USS Rafael Peralta, and the USS Truxton, and the USS Mason, all three Arleigh Burke class guided missile destroyers. And those ships came out, and Central Command put out photographs of them, but they put out stock photos and videos. And there's a lot of people out there that believe maybe they took a hit. I don't believe that. Because there's any one thing I know about the Navy. You get in a lick on us, everybody in the Pentagon's going to know about it in 5 minutes, right? If there's a fire in the laundry room, everybody knows about it because they're calling their moms, right? So there's no way you could get a hit in on us and hide that shit. But Sal Marcagliano said, why doesn't Central Command send us video of them today? Just to stop all that stuff. Sal Marcagliano was a merchant marine master, right? Oh, he was an engineer, not a master. Okay. Works for me though. He put a shitload of time in on ships in the merchant marine, so he knows what he's talking about. So
I
that
have
being
some
said, yes, what?
significant activity in Bahrain.
Say again?
Um,
Are
I
we
have some significant activity in Bahrain.
Does this involve the arrest of Iranians, Iranian sympathizers?
Yes.
Go ahead.
They have arrested 41 today, not yesterday, today. Um, which they have been called Iranian sympathizers. You and I have talked about how Bahrain, in particular, has a large majority of Shia citizens. And the reason they do have that many Shia citizens is back in the day when they were looking for workers to fill up Bahrain, they allowed a lot of Iranians to come and they gave them the Bahraini citizenship. So a lot of Iranians have become Bahraini in the last 50 to 100 years. and now you have a lot of Iranian sympathizers in Bahrain. During the Arab Spring, Saudi Arabia sent its national defense forces into Bahrain to
Mm.
clear out all the protesters in the squares, and they took them out with military force, guns, live bullets, and all. But that's what you have a history of. You do have a history of Iranians converts in Bahrain. You do have the same thing in Kuwait. You've been to Kuwait. You've seen it in person. Um, what do you think about these arrests, Malcolm?
Well, first off, I'm sure that working with Saudi intelligence, maybe even the American intelligence, but the Bahrainis have always kept a very close eye on internal Shia Muslim agitators. And I think what they get, because say what you will about Iran, but their communications are not the best, right? And in a country like Bahrain, which is very small, I lived in Manama. I was at what was what was U.S. Fifth Fleet, right? Back in the oldie days when it was new and it was called U.S. Commander Middle East Force. And the only thing we had there was teeny tiny little base that was about the size of this room. And the ship that Fifth Fleet, now Fifth Fleet Command, was on, back then Commander Middle East Force was on, USS Coronado. Then that base expanded during Desert Storm, and it was massive. And then they put on baseball fields and movie theater and the Baskin
Yes.
Robbins, right? The most important part of there. So you can get your 51 flavors and your ice cream cake, right? Very important part of U.S. naval operations. So, that being said, the Bahrainis' job was to keep dibs on the Shia community. And I think they're very good at that. So these people are probably agitators in the sense that Iranians were trying to communicate with them to have an uprising. And that goes on forever. I mean, when I was 24 years old, that's 40 years ago, this same thing went on. And, but Bahrain is the size of a thumb stamp. So
Yeah.
it's easy to monitor, but it's also easy to have trouble. And they also probably went after people who were tweeting photos going, "Yay, Iran!"
Uh huh.
blasting the US base, right? So
Exactly.
yikes, yikes, yikes. So we'll see about that. Okay, there was no significant U.S. activity other than what we told you about attacking the three Iranian empty tankers that were going back in to fill up with oil. Two of those tankers were slipping by the U.S. Navy's physical blockade because the three ships that were doing it were too busy running in and out of the Strait of Hormuz. And so they used F-18 aircraft, one using small rockets to disable two ships, and then a third used its cannon, its gun, to disable those ships. And those ships are still moving to the Gulf of Oman not under control, is what the phrase that they use. In other news, the United Kingdom is moving HMS Dragon, its most advanced, I think it's a Type 46 type destroyer. Somebody looked that up for me. That is their Aegis class guided missile destroyer that was off of Yemen. It was off of Cyprus most of this war. This is not the United Kingdom coming to join us. This is the United Kingdom coming to stage in case U.S. forces, the war ends and they want to exercise navigation. It could also be to get a vessel out there in case the British, the French, the Germans, the Dutch decide to send a multinational mine-sweeping task force doot, 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 around the Arabian Gulf. And as part of France's obligation to the UAE and others, as a neutral force, they would sweep the Strait of Hormuz so that U.S. naval vessels don't have to go in there and get shot, because that's exactly what's going to happen if U.S. vessels go in there. The Iranians are declaring the Strait of Hormuz as their strategic asset and their territory, right up to the water of Oman, the shores of Oman. So that's going to get, they like my sound effects. That's going to get people upset, needless to say. One other more significant activity that has not been discussed, I will actually show an image of this right now. Did you know that not only does 20% of the world's oil go through the Strait of Hormuz? I'm going to show you a picture here, but that 15 to 20% of the world's data goes straight down the middle of the Strait of Hormuz on multiple fiber optic cables that connects literally all of Asia to the Middle East and Europe. And if these are physical fiber optic cables, they're real, they're in the water, and guess what? They're in the middle of the old traffic separation scheme, right? Where people say there are mines. And if someone were to, oh, I don't know, go up there with a dhow at night and throw out a big fucking anchor and drag that anchor from south to north across those cables, or it's shallow. I mean, it's 65 meters there. What is that? 180 feet? You can drop divers in that water and you could put explosives on it and you could physically blow those cables in half. Or the easiest thing is put an anchor out there and drag it across the bottom on a small tanker. That would cut the data between Asia and Europe. Did I mention that all the financial trade is done on these cables? These are internet high-speed data cables that connect all those data centers. Iran has now threatened them because they claim U.S. military operations are being coordinated on these data cables and have replaced the U.S. military's high-speed satellite lines for our data centers. And guess what? Pretty much true. Will Satire says I should head up the DoD. Yes, you should. Anybody could. All of us. Starlink would win the business. Starlink won't be winning anything. We're going to nationalize Starlink. That is the newest threat to the Strait of Hormuz. That is, we've already seen Russia and its shadow fleet do these operations in the Baltic Sea, where they go up off of Finland and they drag an anchor deliberately with plans to cut these cables. And they do. But if Iran were to do this, were to destroy those cables, boy, you think the world's bad without oil? Just imagine Asia without the internet, right? I mean, advanced internet, not coming off a satellite. Data cables, right, which are giant, thick cables, have millions of fiber optic lines in them, right, moving at the speed of light, which connects internet data back and forth. And if they were cut, Asia would go blind. I mean, it's like going from a fire hydrant down to, if you're using satellite, somebody getting one of those cocktail straws and spewing water through it like that, as opposed to a fire hydrant. And imagine if every one of those cables is a fire hydrant. Well, we are talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 major ones right now. That's 11 fire hydrants going down to one cocktail straw. In the modern world, satellite cannot handle it. That's why we lay fiber optic cables, which replaced old copper telegraph cables. Wajeeh, you still with us? Oh, his internet connection is salty. I see how that is. Uh, Let me see. I'll invite him back, see if we can get him back. Yeah, he has a spicy internet cable. Okay, that being said, we have 15 minutes for questions. Oh, last part, the off-ramp. We lost you there, and you're still
I'm
bouncing.
right here. I'm just
All right,
having an issue with the mic.
no problem. The off-ramp, what used to be called unconditional surrender, according to both Axios and Jonathan Lemire, former national security correspondent at CNN. He's not anymore, I don't believe so. Um, It is now Trump is bored with the war.
Yep.
And
He's been bored with the war since week 2.
yeah, well, now they're reporting he's really bored with the war and he would like to get out of this war. Somebody says, "Can I run for president?" No. So he would like to get out of this war. I say, rock on. Some of the details of the proposal are starting to leak out. The MOU is supposed to end the war for a formal treaty signed 30 days
People
later.
don't understand what the memorandum of understanding is.
Ah,
Could we
that's what
take
I'm
a
saying. It's a paragraph. It's a couple of paragraphs that says, we agree that right now we will talk about these things and get it signed off on in 30 days. That's what an MOU is. It's just a paper that says, we understand these things will end up happening. Okay? Here's some of the details. One, that it will formally end the war. There will be a treaty that will formally end the war as a memorandum of understanding. Two, Iran will stop all enrichment at, right now, the U.S. You ready for this? Is proposing 12 years.
Oh my God. That's
The,
less than 15 years.
the Obama's JCPOA was 10 years. So we're getting the JCPOA plus 2 years. But remember, the most important thing that Trump hated about the JCPOA was Obama's signature, because a black guy did it, and he hates anything that black guys do. I'm sorry I don't have that song by Stephanie Miller, When the Black Guy Did It, done to the song of a New York Minute. So I got to get that for us. Iran will stop all enrichment for 12 years. They will hand over all of their 60% enriched uranium, which is exactly what Obama got from them back in when the JCPOA was signed. And the JCPOA took 3 years to negotiate, of real diplomats, not people, not Jared Kushner and a real estate broker and a failed freaking investor. They
Sorry,
would,
but
yes, sir.
why would the Iran agree to giving up their 60% enriched uranium?
Alas, they didn't say they would. They said that they would take that 30 days to talk about it. So, this is America's proposal, okay? This is Trump's proposal. The Strait of Hormuz, somebody asked about the Strait. The Strait of Hormuz would return to being open for everybody under the Iranian Persian Gulf Strait Authority's control. Remember, they're going to now run the Strait of Hormuz like the New York Port Authority bridges and tunnels, right? As soon as you come through, you don't even have to stop at the toll booth anymore. They replaced the toll booths, right? They're just going to do easy pass, multi-pass license check. As soon as you come by, they take your name down and they just send you a bill straight to off your license plate. So, God almighty. And that Iran will disable its 3 underground nuclear facilities, and all energy related to nuclear power will be done above ground so we can destroy it quickly, or Israel can just come up and destroy it against our wishes. And the last point that I'm going to talk about today, and you will all be up to date because there's a relatively slow news day. Israel Channel 12 is reporting that Israel is telling Washington that they should be ready with Israel when Iran rejects this to destroy all of Iran's energy infrastructure, every power plant, including the knocking out the support to the nuclear power plant, all of their oil fields. That's what Netanyahu wants right now. And Israel is planning on that. Remember, we said Israel's agenda no longer matches Washington's agenda.
Yeah.
It's Israel's agenda. Pay attention, people. That's it, Wajeeh. Let's go to questions.
Let's do it.
All right, let me go on up
I'm going to
here.
pull up your live chat as well so I can
Yeah,
see
let
the
me pull that
question.
live chat up. Get my homies. There you are in the chat. There's already 99. Okay, day 73. Group questions. Halas. Why is the UK sending a ship? This is from Bluestein. Ship to Hormuz. What does it do militarily? I believe that they are getting there in advance of the minesweeping task force that will be assembled. This is exactly what happened at Desert Storm and all the rest. Hey, Chief from Ryuzaki, who is one of our big super fans. Hey, Chief, since New York can prosecute insider trading, what's the likelihood of Letitia James looking into this recent gaming in the stock market? Funny you should mention that. A lot of talk about that here in the United States and New York State about the state going after you. When it happens, you know what they'll do? They ain't gonna say a fucking word until they go, we are releasing an indictment against blah, 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 Donald Trump Jr. for insider trading. And then it'll be a war of the Justice Department versus states' rights. So we'll see about that. Ed says, is Trump trying to win the war with Iran or just prolong the war? Will he use the war to declare an emergency in the fall to postpone the midterms? Have we seen the last U.S. federal election? A lot of questions there. I don't think he wants to win the war. I think he wants to run the hell away from this war as quickly as possible, but he has to look like he's jumping his chest to do it. I won the blockade. We can go now. What do you think?
We have to understand that there is multiple levels of conflict of interest when we are looking at the Trump administration and this war.
Mhm.
On one hand, we look at his mental health and his capability of making decisions and not being aware of what decisions he's making. Second hand, not too many people are making profit off of this war. And the people who are making profit out of this war, you can count them with one or two hands,
Yep.
including the Trump family. And the other part is that as much as he is bored and he's tired of his numbers tanking, by the end of the day, he's able to escape the current DOJ and the current Supreme Court because everyone is he appointed essentially is there like worshiping him, including the U.S. Congress. So we're not at a situation where we have checks and balances. We're not at a situation where we have a president can be able to make sound decisions and remember them. And then on the same time, they're making money off of it. Why should they stop?
Yep. Making that money, getting them dollars. Okay. Wow. Okay. Next. Oh, somebody. Uh, what is this? Kenry Griffin says, I understand it's off topic, but if you have the opportunity to delve into the details of being a black man in the Ukrainian army, I would be interested to hear about it. I was only informed about their Nazi brigade. Nazi brigade. There's morons who are in the Ukrainian army. I kicked out a Nazi from my battalion. Straight up French Nazi was going on television with the my battalion patches on and doing French television interviews about, Hitler was great to kill the Jews. I had that guy out of my battalion in like less than an hour. Then again, I also kicked out Craig Lang, the American who was wanted for the murder of two elderly people in a deal where they were selling guns or buying guns and they bought in a lot of cash and they murdered them both and took the cash and he fled to Ukraine. He showed up in my battalion. I made sure that SBU had his ass on a bus to the FBI in no time, and he's now in a prison in the United States. We will do a special Ukrainian show because there are some Ukrainian issues we need to talk about. Jacob touched on it a couple of days ago, and I'll talk about that. But you know what's even funnier is that my memoir is coming out next year, and they only wanted a little bit about Ukraine. And I said, I got enough for a book. And they were like, no one would buy a book about Ukraine in the United States.
What kind of BS is that?
No, this is from one of the largest publishing houses in America. No one. They have no interest. They do market studies, no interest. Even a black guy in the Ukrainian army, zero interest. Weird. So the most you're going to get is reading my memoir, the last chapter. Okay. Arush Javinajad says, why would the Trump admin keep lying about Iran's military capabilities still available? Because the U.S. intelligence has been reported that we did not destroy all their military capability. We destroyed some of their military capability. There's a new
That-
assessment out. There's a new assessment out just in the last day, not from the CIA, from defense intelligence, that says they still retain most of their military capability except for their Air Force and their Navy, which
that's it.
can be replaced. But as you see, like the Ukrainians, I keep hearing Trump go, we sank all 153 of their boats, not the 33,000 tiny boats that can come out and swamp us 100 boats at a time. Um, and here's the kicker. The Ukrainians don't have a navy. I think they have four minesweepers. And by the way, the Ukrainians offered to send their British minesweepers down to the Persian Gulf, right? Talk about having
Absolutely.
cards, right? To help Trump sweep the mines. But the Ukrainians don't have a navy. They wiped out the Russian navy without having a navy. That's a mean trick. So never say they don't have this. They can't touch us. Yeah, you're right. They can. Okay, moving on from that. Can you discuss the role of China? My son is the same rank and rate you are. You have a CTI, Senior Chief Petty Officer, in your family. What language? That is from Toothpicker. Type it up, Toothpicker. What language is he doing? So, uh, I have lived the Navy life for over 40 years. Mwah, we love you. My ma had at one time myself, my five brothers, and my father in the Navy.
Wow.
My
Wow.
poor old sainted, she's in heaven now. My poor old sainted Navy ma, right? That old saying, Navy wife, the hardest job in the Navy. Oh, yeah. Hardest effing job in the Navy. Hey, Chief, says the old salt. Cool name. Chief, are any of you worried about this Trump Z summit? Because I'm currently somewhere between the reasonably concerned and looking up abandoned Japanese bunkers near Taipei on Google Maps. I look at this and see one leader who might agree to basically anything if it means escaping another forever war he blundered into, and another leading staring at the Taiwan Strait, watching a chaotic little democracy rack up GDP growth and stock market numbers that any country in the developing world would kill for. This has to drive Xi absolutely insane. What do you think, Watch?
Uh, Listen, if anyone has actual pressure to put on the United States in the current conflict, it is she. It is China. They have the military might. They have the infrastructure. They are so close to Taiwan. The United States has been drawn thin out of the South East China Sea, and they're so focused on the Persian Gulf. Meanwhile, China gets most of its oil from Gulf regions, and they need the Strait of Hormuz to open up in order for them to keep making money.
Yep.
The three sides that are benefiting from this war is Russia, Ukraine, and China. Russia is selling oil. China is now considered to be the peacemaker in the region instead of the United States. They
The
have
adult.
substituted every country that the United States used to go to and send their U.S. aid, not U.S. aid in terms of funds, no, U.S. aid in terms of the organization. There's a difference between what the funding that the U.S. government sends and U.S. aid itself. A lot of the U.S. aid was used for a lot of intelligence purposes and a lot of soft power that we had over the world. Now we don't have that anymore. The one that is calling the shot in Asia, the one that's calling the shot in the Middle East, and the one that's building the Silk Road again from China to the Middle East to Europe to Africa is China. So they have a lot of say on what goes and what doesn't go. So if anyone could maybe put some sort of extra pressure on Trump, I think it's
Mhm.
China.
Yep. Hey, listen, there's a lot of questions in the chat I can't get to. I have to go do another show. I'm going to answer those questions. So just watch your chat today when you see a response from me, because there's some really good questions, like about wounded troops, Hezbollah using FPV drones. Do I agree fawn ops are a good idea? Hmm. Yeah. There's a lot of casualty things here. And here's one of my favorites. Lydia Van Norton says, does Trump even care anymore? No. Did Trump ever
No.
care? Here's what he cares about: money. And if he can't make money, then he's angry. He's a petulant little child. All
You
right,
know,
guys. That's great. We had a lot of you for a Saturday morning, 1,600 of you. Thank you for coming. If you are watching this on YouTube, you're already late. But thank you, and be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. But come over to Black Man Spy in the morning, unless you have a very busy day. And come over here and watch this live at malcolmnance.substack.com. Come become a subscriber to Substack. Still trying to get to 100,000. I just cannot make this last 3,000. I don't know what it is. I don't know all these big accounts out there. If you follow big accounts, go on there and say, hey, follow Malcolm Nance. We're trying to get him to #1 on world politics on Substack. Pass Glenn Greenwald, for God's sakes. That would be awesome. But this is a relatively new podcast and relatively new Substack, only 2 years old, I think. And we've really jumped up since this war began. And thank you for going on the chat. You can continue this discussion on the chat. Thank you, guys. I will see you
question.
all tomorrow
You have
this time. Yes?
you have a recording after this. Is it going to be live? Can people tune in, or just gonna?
Yes, but it's on Twitter. It's a live with Mario Nualfal on Twitter. He's in Dubai. I'm here. You can go on there and watch it. But I know you're going to be having a Q&A somewhere, because that's your
Well,
thing.
I don't want to steal your viewers from you. I want to make sure that if people who are
Yeah.
watching you and want to follow you, they
All right.
can go to Mario and they can follow you there
All right.
and watch your live stream.
Yeah, somebody goes, not Twitter. Yeah, I know. I go on Twitter to harass people. But why don't you do yours at 11 o'clock, which is 1 hour from now, or which is what, 10 a.m. for you? 10
Sure.
a.m. Central, not 11 a.m. Eastern, and go ask questions of Wajeeh.
Yep.
We will be back tomorrow. Jacob will be back. Thank you all. Shukran fimallah. Bye bye.
Bye bye.